All right, and we're back. Welcome to the Crash Labs. Today, I have a very special guest, a longtime friend, mentor, colleague, guide in this industry. One of my absolute favorite people, Jim Longshore. Welcome to the Crash Labs.
Thanks, Denis. Ditto.
So I mean, I'll give our guests a bit of background on you and I. I think it's a cool story. So Jim and I met in Ghana. I was actually working on an alluvial project out in the floodplains along the Brim River. And we had sold that project. And I was working for a large Danny Dadgest, which was a large auto billionaire, effectively, who owned that privately. And after we sold that, Jim and I were neighbors, and we were friends during that.
Sure, we met several times.
Yeah, we met several times before.
It was Wyoming.
Yeah, exactly. And we were in the same hood, and then it was always like I loved Xtra's land package because it was the entire Atiwa range, which, if for those people that don't know Ghana, there's basically 4 main greenstone belts in Ghana, and the Atiwa range is sort of it's the closest one to the coast, but it's the smallest one in terms of size. But the Kibi-Winneba belt was sort of ignored in many ways. And then the alluvial deposits along the Brim River, where Brimian rocks were coined, some of the richest alluvium out there. And so all that gold came from somewhere, and it's almost undoubtedly came from the range. And so it was always like we could sit at the bottom and look up at this mountain and say, all this gold came from up there somewhere, and no one's ever found it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the dream.
Yeah, so like you said, the Kibi gold belt with the Brim River, because it was the richest in history, Europeans went there back to the Portuguese in 1500 looking for gold. Before that, even Saudi Arabia people came for thousands of years to get Ghana gold.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came from that area, in Obuasi area. And no one ever looked for the hard rock sources because it was so rich in alluvial. For the locals mined it for, artisanally for thousands of years. And we were the first ones to stake it when you were a neighbor down at Wyoming Mining.
Yep.
We used to talk about finding this thing, and then we worked together. You were our chief geologist in modeling from 210 to 212. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And or actually 212. Yeah, it would have been 212 for sure. 212.
210 to 212.
Yeah.
Yeah. So about two years you worked as the model. You did all the modeling there.
For that. Yeah. It was pretty insane. Like I remember when getting the offer to work for Pine Tree Capital at that time. And then you and Mark McInnes and some other guys, Paul's Island stuff, had reached out to me to say, hey, are you in Toronto? And I was actually here for an interview, and I got a job offer from Pine Tree at the time.
Right.
And then I came to go and see you guys, and you're like, you want to come back to Ghana? And we got some money, and we're going to go and work this project to make a discovery. And I was like, I have to do it.
Right.
Have to do it, man. Like,
and then you went back to Pine Tree later anyway.
It was later, yeah. later that, when the markets took a turn and all of us were kind of like, we had to make some responsible decisions and slow expenditures down. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty crazy, man. What a incredible, to this day, it's sort of my favorite discovery.
Well, thanks
to be a part of, because it was a true virgin discovery. And Eve is such a phenomenal geologist, prospector, everything.
Yeah, and he's still with us. So he's been there since 2006.
Yep.
He's done all the geological work. And it's gonna be a big discovery. And you did the original work with us. There was the 3 of us.
Yeah.
There was me, you, and Eves. That was it.
It was insane.
And I'm not a geologist, so I just basically raised some money.
But you know what? It gave me a lot, Jim. A lot of perspective on CEO. So when I did finally go to Pine Tree and I met, I appreciated you for this at the time, and even I would talk about this, and I don't know how much smoke we would blow up your ass at any point on it, but maybe not enough, but through that story arc, one of the things I always appreciated with you is that, you were not a geologist, but as the CEO of the company, you were there so much and you cared so much and you wanted to learn. What is it you're looking at? What are you spinning around there? What's that geophysics mean? What is that? What are you looking for?
Right.
And then you learned all the vernacular and the stuff on the fly. And I know you say you're not a geologist, but when it comes to that project, you understand that geology. You understand that project.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I was associated with good people like you and Eves that helped me learn the project. And, it's, I wanted to do one in my life.
Yeah.
And this is it. And it's helped me, because I've invested in some of my other colleagues that run other resource companies. So it's helped me in my investment style also. To
learning
that background. Yeah. It's helped a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy because when I went to Pine Tree, I met all these other CEOs and other people. Like, oftentimes you do get technical people that are running these companies, but sometimes you don't. Like, I would say probably it's a healthy 50-50, if not heavily weighted to non-technical people running companies.
Right.
And I would put you in definitely the top decile, if not the top 1% of non-technical CEOs that has an incredible passion for discovery, and you want to know, like when we were hitting holes or whatever, it was like, explain how that works, explain that. And there was never a dumb question. There was never a moment where you felt that, but you were, it was nice to have that. And so
thank you for that.
Yeah. Anyway, we used to say it all the time,
but you know what they say, there's never two gold deposits exactly alike.
For sure.
If you only worked on one extensively, I mean, we've looked at other ones, but never, myself, my education. I've invested in plenty, probably other gold projects like Friends.
Yeah.
Probably a couple hundred, in my 30-year history. But having said that, I've never run one. So running one is completely different, and learning everything on the ground from your geos. And, it's one of those things that you stick with it and you're very passionate about it. And like you said, this is going to probably be a big discovery. It's proving up to be a fairly big gold district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I remember this, and sometimes I run into passion. Very few times you run into passion, and passion goes a long way. And I recall sitting like at the camp where we can look up at the range, and and the sun would be coming up in the morning, and having a coffee and looking out on the patio and being like, or at the end of the day, with a beer, and looking out out at the horizon and going, boys, there's a big one out there. Like we're gonna find it. We're finding it. It's gonna happen for us. It was almost like Sixth Sense. Like a, you're willing it to be. In some
there.
strange way.
It's there. It's a question of whether you can find it.
Right.
Yeah, and whether you have the capital to find it.
Yeah.
And you always take a little luck if you can take it, or as much luck as you can get, because it's a big area to cover. As you know, that land package is like 226 square kilometers.
It's insane.
It's like a needle in a haystack, but I think we're into it now. Like we have a good understanding of
it's a big haystack.
Still a big haystack, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's shaping up nicely.
So let's talk about that, because I think it's interesting to understand, and one of the reasons why it is maybe my favorite discovery that I've certainly been a part of is that when we started there, man, it was insane to get into the bush, to get access to that ridge. It was like a 7-hour, remember?
Long hike.
Oh, from the road?
Yeah.
Just to claw up through there and go to this and go to that.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
This is untouched. It was untouched.
Yeah, the jungle, that Atiwa range, which, we use those words, Atiwa. It's Atiwa range, and that's the Kibi Gold Belt. It's the same interterm.
Yeah, Kibi Winneba Belt or Atiwa range.
Yeah, and we refer to the Kibi Gold Belt because we have the northern part.
Yep.
And we believe that's the gold part. And that Atiwa range at the top is one of the last virgin jungles, like left in that close proximity to Accra, because we have a big population growth, right, in Ghana.
Yep.
So, yeah, that area has pretty much been untouched. And when we started that project, we had to do bush pass, and, there was quite a bit of illegal logging. So a lot of times we would, if you recall, we would use those old illegal logging roads and then
To get in.
and then we'd cut from there. But now we have a whole road system, so it's changed a lot since your days. Yeah. But it's, you know,
it changed a lot real quick for us when we were doing it too, because we had some real early success and we were off to the races.
Yeah, and you know, so I mean, up there too, I don't know if you remember, we probably had 6 of the top 10 most venomous steaks up there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen our share of those up there in the old days.
I remember Eve and I were getting chased by a green mamba. So where there was like the mango trench.
Yeah.
I remember this.
I remember that story.
There was like a mango trench.
Yeah.
And there was a little mango tree that was close to it.
Yeah.
And there'd be mangoes and leaves in the bottom.
Yeah.
And you had to be careful because you could step on a puff adder, which will also fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And so, but we were in there, and then there was this long, and one of the guys went, "Holy shit." Like ran out. I think it was like George. I forget who it was. It was like, or it was you know, one of our.
It was
Steven or something, and it was like panicking. And then there was a green mamba, and the difference between the green mambas and the black mambas, the green mambas are really aggressive.
Very.
Like they get very defensive and territorial.
Yeah.
And it chased after us. So here's a bunch of grown men running from this like cord, long, skinny, hyper venomous snake, and it's chasing us, and we jumped into the pickup truck, and it started twacking the door of the pickup, like bang, bang, and still you're inside a truck. You know there's no way this snake can get you.
Yeah.
But it friggin' striked like the door, and then we started to drive, and it was even chasing the truck like down a few, 10, 20 feet, like after we started going.
Right.
Holy
I remember the story. I wasn't in the trench with you guys, but I heard they can fly in the air about 20 feet, those things.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they can really
jump from the branches and stuff?
From the branches, yeah.
Wow. I don't know. That was crazy.
It's kind of weird when you have a 2-foot-long snake, really skinny, attacking your truck.
And then we had the river god. Remember when we Cobra Creek?
Yeah.
So we took the dozer into Cobra Creek to get access to that thing.
Yeah.
And then there was the biggest black cobra the world's ever seen.
I heard. Do you remember how many feet that was?
I forget. It was as big as a dozer almost.
Yeah. Like so I've heard them getting, like I've heard stories like it's crazy, but
I saw it.
There's rumors that they could get up to 4 meters. So that's like 15 pushing 20 feet.
That was a big boy. I saw it.
Yeah.
Because the dozer hit it.
Right.
And then everybody freaked out. It was like we killed the river god, with the dozer, and it was bad juju, like you just don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the black cobras, they pretty much, they're fairly docile snakes unless you step on them, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
But if you step on them, then you're in trouble.
Oh, it's nuts.
Yeah,
yeah. Everything from like witches. Sometimes you had witches, and you had to do some stuff to get rid of the witches. And then the snakes, and then the omens, and it's a crazy trip, man. Gone is a trip.
Yeah, gone is that. But on the other side, it's politically one of the more stable countries in Africa. Sure. We have no kidnappings. Knock on wood, and so you can walk around. You don't need security. It's got a nice vibe to it.
I never felt in danger ever.
Yeah, I call it the Bahamas of Africa.
Yep.
It's very, very pleasant people in general.
Yeah, amazing people.
Yeah, very polite.
Yep.
Yeah. I love working there.
Jovial.
Yep. It's got a good vibe.
Good humor, good culture. It's a great place to be.
And I said I would never go to work somewhere where I needed security and didn't feel safe. And that's why I chose that jurisdiction.
Right.
Because I wanted to be part of the community. I didn't want to walk around with security. So I can drive on my own. I can go. We're in a lot of African countries. You have to have security with you.
So let's talk about the project a bit and sort of the evolution through the timeline. So big discovery was made with Zone 2. That's when things got really exciting. We started to drill some really big hits. The stock went crazy for a bit. Like what was the market cap at that time?
Yeah,
probably peak. It was like $2.30 a share.
Yeah, so the stock went to, I think, high at 250 Canadian on the Toronto. We listed on the Toronto of November of 2010 when you were with us. And the stock, we listed at 135 a share.
Yeah.
And it went to high at 250. And we hit some nice intercepts. We used all that IPO money, the 10 million we raised to drill Zone 2.
Yep.
Which we called Zone 2 of the QB project. We put in approximately 250 holes I think it was 230 holes with that money when you were there.
Yep.
And we proved up, let's say, the first 400,000 ounces. It was open-ended. And if you recall, I Am Gold really wanted to buy into the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they wanted,
not just them, some other big neighbors too.
And you know, then the gold market started unraveling in mid 2012.
Yep.
Before the resource came out, and what happened is that everyone's stock, including I Am Gold, they were like $27. By the time it was all over, they went to $1. I think we went from like $2.50, we went down to like 30 cents.
Yeah.
You know, that by the time $2.15 had rolled around. So we just rolled up our sleeves. We didn't raise any money. And then quietly, we started going back to drilling with our own rigs in 2020 when gold market started picking up again.
So that was cool. So that's something different that a lot of people don't do.
Right.
So let's talk about that for a sec. So when you went out and got rigs.
Yeah.
The rigs came from Sudbury, if I recall.
Yeah, right? We had them custom built.
They were custom built, yeah.
For us in Sudbury to handle that jungle terrain.
Yeah.
We put them on rubber track mounted rigs called Maruku rigs. They're like made for all terrain vehicles.
Yep.
So we did that, and we decided to go to that route because, as you know, finding a gold discovery, the expensive part is the drilling. And we did the math, and it was 80% less to buy our own rigs. We knew we had a discovery.
Yeah.
That first zone 2 was all open-ended. So we said, you know, we're going to buy our first rig and see if we can manage it with the people that are here.
Yep.
Because no one else is drilling because the gold market is so bad. And now we've added, you know, we're up to 3 rigs. We went to 3 rigs by 2021.
And what's the all-in drilling cost?
So the all-in drilling cost, I figure right now to contract everything out, it's about $250 a meter.
Yep.
And ours would be about $50 a meter.
That's insane.
So it's a big difference.
$50 a meter.
Yeah.
In-house
drilling.
Let's go.
So we're we're probably discovering an ounce for $5 an ounce in the ground.
Yep.
And you know, a going value now is for an ounce in the ground is about 100 in Africa privately to sell it. So if we're proving up 1 million ounces at $5 an ounce, which is 5 million, and we can sell it for, you know, 100 million, that's a great return. Having said that, if you contract your rigs, you know, the cost per ounce of finding cost goes up 5 or 6-fold, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one of the big issues in our industry right now that, you know, is continually financing these things, these drill programs on an early discovery. Because the average company might have to spend $100 million to prove up a big deposit. You know, so if we can get that down to like 20 million.
Yep.
And prove up the ounces, then our shareholders are going to make a ton of money if we go to sell this.
So when we look at, there's a couple of things we're leaving out for people, but when we look at the financial engineering around Xtra-Gold, which I believe is super unique in the industry, let's go back again, back down memory lane. So when's the last time Xtra did a financing?
Was our IPO in November 2010, so 14 years ago.
So 14 years ago was the last time you raised money.
Correct.
And then you bought back
about 5 million shares in the issuer bid.
That's insane.
Yeah. And we bought 3 rigs.
And so there's probably people going, well, there must be cash flow. So let's round that out for them. So to preface it, I gave my intro to the story with the Alluvium. That's how I got into this. I was working the alluvial deposits around the base of the ridge. Xtra-Gold had the largest land position, basically monopolized the ridge in a way. There was a hell of a lot of, historically in the 80s and the 90s, there was a lot of alluvial prospecting that was done back when placer gold was still, you know, a respected or at least a viable thing.
Right.
And so you had this very rich history of placer exploration, and effectively, although you can't call it that today under 43101 standards, there was a traditional resource there.
There was. And, you know, I don't know if you know that.
John Ray.
Well, Ned Goodman.
Yeah.
It was a company called Sycamore. The Quabang and Pamang concession, which are 2 of our big alluvial producing properties, were financed by Seymour Schulich and Ned Goodman back in 88.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And they did all the 4310, and they proved up about a historical resource of about 200,000 ounces on those two properties
of placer gold.
of placer, just doing the pitting.
Yeah.
Right. So for those of you who don't know Seymour Schulich, he's a billionaire in Canada, but he worked with Ned Goodman in the 80s. And that was one of Ned's first. I met Ned in 2008, and he told me that was his first gold project, was the Pameng and Quabang in the Kibbe Gold Belt. So, and there's old pictures at the camp of like Sycamore. They were public on the Toronto.
Yep.
Now, obviously, we know, so that original work. Now, the Kibbe Gold Belt that we're going after, we're going in the hills looking for the
source rock.
The source rock that created that. And you're right, all that source rock was just an erosion of that gold belt over thousands of years before the jungle was there. So 12,000 years ago, that jungle wasn't there. We had a very tumultuous rainy period, and that ridge eroded. And in the floodplain below the ridge, it created this big alluvial footprint of gold. And, like you said, we're up there proving the sources now.
We're talking like Gold Rush, Alaska, for those listeners that are not familiar with the term placer or alluvial gold.
Right.
We're talking about what you see on TV with like Gold Rush, Alaska, like big gravel layers, basically. So you get these massive, thick gravel deposits, and there's nuggets of gold and free gold in them. You can go down there with a pan and pan it out, and away you go, right? You dig your hole, and so there's a wee bit of overburden on top of it, a few meters in some cases, and then you get down to the gravel layers, and there's a few meters of that, and you know, it can run pretty good. It can run up to like 1-2 grams per cubic meter.
That's correct.
In the really rich parts, let's say. And then there's nuggets, there's X factors there too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how that came together, because that's a unique story. When we pivoted to hard rock exploration up into the range, what were some of the hurdles? Because maybe there's some listeners thinking, oh, well, why wouldn't you just mine that placer gold yourself?
Well,
explain how that comes together.
So you got to remember, when we bought the property, we knew that placer gold was all there.
For sure.
Or alluvial gold for your listeners. Placer is what U.S. people call alluvial.
Yep.
It's interchangeable. We knew that was all there, and we knew there was a lot more there that wasn't found. But that wasn't really what we bought the properties for. We bought the properties to have a big gold discovery on the Hardrock.
Up in the mountain.
Up in the mountains. And that's where, traditionally public shareholders can do very well if you find the big discovery, as you know. And traditionally, you can't make money on alluvial because it's much smaller, and the locals usually, it's a smaller, more of a private mom and pop operation.
Yep.
But what we did, something unique, is in 2010, I came up with this idea. I hired the 6 biggest alluvial African contractors and said, why don't we do a community mining project? You guys take 80% of the gold revenue, and we'll take 20. And we kind of looked at it as a quasi royalty deal. Mm-hmm. Having said that, still our property, we're still deemed in.
And these are licensed local contract miners. They have mining services provider licenses.
Correct. Yeah.
To go for this.
So they're fully licensed, and it's all legal. Now, remember, most of these people were encroaching our properties anyway. Illegally. So they were coming anyway. So I just said, well, let's try to capture some of this value. So I think it was, everyone said it couldn't be done, that they were just going to steal all the gold. But obviously it worked. Won't get into all the reasons why it worked. But I think the main reason you touched on before, I was in Ghana a long time.
Yeah, you had your thumb on it.
I had my thumb on it. I was an owner-operator.
Yep.
And I was there. And when you're an owner-operator and you're fully vested and put all your money in the company, you tend to work hard to make sure the gold all comes in. Right?
So just for those listeners, I'll just recap what Jim said in other ways. So effectively, sometimes you hear about projects. You hear about illegal mining, whether you're in South America, they would call it garimperos. Right. Or in West Africa, they call it galamsey.
Right.
They're illegal miners. They're just local people that don't have permits. They don't have really. They don't have the environmental considerations either. They use pretty nasty things sometimes. They'll put mercury and put kids down in these pits, and they'll do some things. And some of them are not. I'm sort of painting a more nefarious brush to it, but some of them are just hardworking local people just trying to earn something, and they get together and try to do this. And the problem is there's no reclamation, there's no environmental considerations for this work, and they don't have the permits and stuff. And so oftentimes when you're a public company, Canadian company working in these types of jurisdictions, it presents some problems because you want to be working there, but then it won't be long before you're in conflict with these local groups trying to do these things. And so oftentimes we'll hear about how there was illegal mining, and then, military comes in and clears it out, but it's sort of an unquashable, it's almost an unwinnable thing. And so what Jim had said is that, he took a different approach, and he said, well, why don't we look at getting some formalization here, getting some locals with mining services provider licenses, with the legal ability to do these things. How did you make sure that you weren't going to end up with a big mess by allowing that process to go about? How did these guys? I know the answer to it, but I'm asking.
Sure. Well, that's a great question, but you got to remember, they're coming anyway. The illegal miners.
Yeah.
Let's call them artisan.
Artisanal miners.
Yeah.
They're coming anyways.
They're coming anyway. We saw the properties around us get ravaged.
Yeah.
Like just big open, like big pits going all the way up through the Brim River.
Yeah.
And you could take satellite photos and see it all. On our land, because we hired these 6 formalized people and licensed them legally, we committed the company to doing the reclamation, and we explained to our 6 big miners, because they were the biggest, that we have to reclaim, because if we don't, as a foreign company, we won't last. And we also had to put up money for EPA bond, environmental bond. And so we educated them, and today we're partners, and they love us because they've had 14 years where they've worked the same property.
Yeah.
Had this been illegal, they would have worked 1 year and it would have been ravaged by 100 different groups or 200 groups. And so it created a footprint where they've all made lots of money. At the same time, all the land's been reclaimed. And as you know, alluvial gold is, if it's mined properly, is the greenest gold you can mine.
Yeah, it's just water, gravity separation.
It's just water, gravity separation, no chemicals.
Yeah.
So if it's done properly, it's the greenest gold. You reclaim it, and in 5 years, the jungle will grow back in that floodplain, which is usually a wet floodplain.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even know you were there.
Yeah.
So it's the greenest gold you can do. So it's an example of a great example of us working with the locals. Cooperating. It's created a lot of employment.
Yep.
Locally. We're one of the biggest employers next to Newmont Mining, which has a big mine close to us in Achim.
Yep.
And it's been a phenomenal example. Now, we don't go out touting that, but it is a, great example of cooperating with the locals. But it was a lot of work. You had to live there, as you had to do it. You had to befriend these people.
And you got a couple lemons too. There's some groups that came in to do this that meant well, but they had to get the boot for other guys that were doing it better, and they were doing it,
Yeah, you have to go through a process and just get the best local miners. But now those miners, we've worked together. We have a 14-year history with.
In a system.
And they've all done well, and their people have done well, so they love Xtra-Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's created a lot of goodwill in our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we don't have environmental concerns where we work. We don't have people saying, "Oh, you didn't give back to the community."
Yeah.
As a foreign company, because we're not foreign. We're part of the community.
Yeah. We're exploring these rocks up here.
Yeah.
You guys are mining this stuff down here.
Right.
Everybody's winning. There's some profit sharing going on, or at least, as you said, in effect, a royalties arrangement to see a financial benefit back to Xtra. But then Xtra also makes sure that it pays, that all government fees, all taxes, everything's paid, everything's copacetic.
So we have to.
You don't have to rely on them to do that, right?
That was always difficult at first to educate them. We need to take this to pay this and that. the government fees, the taxes, the bond. They didn't understand at first, but now they're very educated in it.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, the 14-year history of mining with us. So, I mean, now they understand the benefit of being legal.
Yeah.
No one wants to pay tax, but it's part of a necessary evil to be legal.
For sure.
Yeah.
And to have peace and tranquility and a strong business.
Right.
You know, and they don't have to look over their shoulders. They have a good business going on. The locals
Right.
are happy. Everybody's happy. Everyone's win.
So it's worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
As
That's
a
phenomenal.
matter of fact, I think we could reproduce it on some Hardrock if we wanted to down the road. But if the discovery is so big, I don't think we'd have to do that. But I've already had some of the local miners come to me on some of the smaller pits we've discovered outside the main discovery.
Yeah.
We could probably reproduce that model.
Now, let me ask you something. So what's been feedback from large companies? I know we've talked to a multitude of them, and you mentioned I Am Gold. Just so that listeners are aware, I mean, these systems were in full operation. Was there any pushback about managing this alluvial and this local situation this way? Was it looked brightly upon by onlooking entities?
Well, you have to remember, we've gone through like a very difficult 13-year gold market,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
COVID, we had a little spike in interest in resource companies, and a lot of companies got financed, let's say in 2000 and 2021. We're almost at low sentiments for resource gold exploration companies to finance these projects.
Yeah.
So the last time we had a big push where a lot of major miners came through our property was in like 212, Newmont came, I Am Gold came, and Perseus came to look at our project because they all had operations nearby us.
Yeah, it matters to them.
Right. But but we haven't gone out and opened those discussions because, you know, our goal is to show it's going to be a multi-million ounce deposit.
Yep.
And we're still
Working away on it.
We're working away, but getting closer to showing that.
Now, what kind of cash flow does this spit off annually, Jim? Like, let's talk about some of the top line numbers. So, how much gold has come out of the alluvials?
Well, I'd rather talk about the cash flow after the costs.
Okay, sure, yeah.
But
let's go there.
You know, we generate about $5 to $6 million a year US, and we need about $3 million, you know, to fund our Hardrock drilling for the 3 rigs. So it funds that plus the head office, plus we bank extra cash and buy rigs, right?
And how much cash does the company have at any sort of given time?
Well,
You
right
keep a
now
fairly
in
healthy float.
right now in the till, we have over 10 million US cash, liquid securities in gold.
Yep.
So about 30 cents plus a share.
Yep.
And we're trading at about $1 on the Toronto. So our resource is getting a value of 70 cents a share, which works out to under $20 an ounce in the ground. And right now, I think, you know, just you saw Osino resource went for $100 an ounce in the ground. I think that's a fair price for a good gold open pit deposit with some tonnage. So, you know, we're probably trading at 80% discount to what we could sell it for privately.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a good opportunity for new investors that want to take a shot on a up and coming resource, and a couple more, you know, pods on this discovery. You know, I think you're going to see some good news coming up in this year.
So that's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you did such a fantastic job engineering all of this and balancing all of these objectives. And, you know, I think just to go back to the alluvial thing, you know, I think people need to understand too that it's a risk too, right? Like if you don't come up with a solution on that, like it's great that the solution is cash flow. It results in cash flow to the company. But if you don't create a solution on that front, it's a liability. That 300,000 ounce historic, you know, we'll call it non-43-101 compliant alluvial resource defined in the 80s and 90s, that's a liability, right? With the locals, if you don't get in front of it and you don't work out a deal, you don't figure out how to manage it.
Sure.
I mean,
if it got ravaged illegally, the government's going to come back and say, it's your property. Why didn't you?
It's your
stop them?
problem.
I'm
your
not,
property.
I don't believe ultimately, legally, it's your responsibility if you do the proper reporting.
Yeah.
Like call the proper authorities that, you know,
notify them.
Notify them. But at the end of the day, you know, we're proud to say that didn't happen on our property, but it happened on all the properties around us.
Exactly.
Right. So, and the government got their tax and it created a ton of local employment. I mean, that employed 500 contract miner workers.
And you've straddled NDC governments and MPP governments. So for the listeners, the conservative governments, the liberal governments, and they've gone through a fairly polarizing swing. With the conservative government being quite nationalistic and the liberal government being commercial, and then also pivoting to some form of nationalism. You've always managed to stay apolitical with this. Do you think that has a lot to do with how you've managed this thing? And
Well, we're business people. We don't get involved in politics.
Right.
I mean, to me, the two main government parties you've noted, I don't need to re-say them. We've worked under both of them.
Yeah.
For many years.
And they've both been okay with.
Yeah. And I don't believe their ideals differ that much. I think that our country's been independent since 1957. I think when they talk about, national stuff in Ghana, it's more rhetoric.
Yep.
Knock on wood. I mean, I believe it's more rhetoric.
It is,
both parties, Ghana, it's viewed as an international country. A lot of Ghanaians work in New York, come back, Toronto, right? All over the world, UK. So the young kids coming back to work there have been schooled in the UK, New York, Toronto, a lot of them. So I believe they're setting themselves up to be global, a global workforce. So I think there's always going to be, when you're talking a little bit of the tribal, there's always that national stuff a little bit, but I think it's more rhetoric. I think where we work in Ghana, it's down to how much business can we bring for the locals and how much cash can we bring in these communities. That's the bottom line. And that's why, for your listeners, I mean, we can permit a mine in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's why we're one of the premier jurisdictions in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in Canada, it can take 10 years to permit a mine.
Yeah.
Right? In Africa, you don't hear of these protests about doing a mine in Ghana. Have you heard of one?
No.
No, we don't have them because everyone's in favor of the work.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's managed properly, these big mining companies, I mean, Newmont, Goldfields, Anglo Ashanti, where we work, we have new entries, Shandong, Chinese. These companies manage these mines properly. Mm-hmm. They're not like, they're at the top of international mining standards and environmental standards, which a lot of people don't understand. But left to the illegal miners, it would be a mess, right? So it's a very good option to have these bigger companies come in. But I think that there's a whole movement now, Africans in Ghana, where we are. Asante Gold's a good example. A lot of Africans have bought into that. There's other mines, mid-sized mines that Africans in Ghana have bought into. So you're seeing a whole up-and-coming generation of Africans in Ghana, where we are, that are owning these projects. There's less and less foreigners.
There's commerce there. There's a real thriving investing circle there.
Right.
Like, you're starting to see that happen too. I mean, let's not forget.
Like Endeavor was bought by a Ghanaian. African, right? Endeavor Mining.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you have, and like.
In their Ghana piece only, not to confuse your.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the phenomenal things there that needs to be understood is that oil and gas was discovered in, I want to say 2010, 2011 time frame.
Yeah, a little before that, but
the first? It really took off after
2007 was the first drill hole we discovered oil.
Yeah,
but it's really started getting interest in 2010. You're right.
Yeah, that's when it started to really pick up, and then now, I mean, I haven't been in years, but and I'd love to come back just to to see everybody and do that. But one of the interesting things about that is that it's introduced, as I've heard from you and other people, that it's been an unbelievable transformation economically in Accra, Takoradi. Like, we're seeing a lot of international capital flying in. We're seeing an explosion of wealth and middle class emerging in Ghana. Sure. On the backs of all this moolah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could always do a lot better.
100%.
Having said that, we could make doing business there a little bit easier, but having said that, if you go back from 2010, the infrastructure has completely changed.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's night and day. And for us, because we're that politically stable country, I mean, for your listeners, the country's the size of France. Geographically, we're very small. And we've seen our population in 20 years go from like 10 million to 30 million.
Yeah, well, that was a big one.
All the immigrants are coming from the French countries around us, like Mali,
Senegal,
Burkina Faso, Togo. They're all immigrating there because we're politically stable.
And Nigerian too.
And a lot of Nigerians have come with their oil money and set up banks.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the African banks have been set up in Ghana. So, and even I've seen a lot of South Africans come there because of the instabilities in South Africa.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was on the rise back when I was there.
Yeah, and it's still happening.
Big influx of South Africans.
Yeah, South Africans came a lot. So I think we have sort of a, if there is such a thing, a melting pot in Africa.
There is,
but for maybe a North American going there, they'll go, they may not see it because they say, oh, that's, but it's there.
No, it's very diverse.
It's very diverse.
Yeah, and then culturally diverse too. I think going back to the nationalism stuff on the political stage, I think one of the big things that's swirling the headlines these days is a lot of talk about China and what China's up to, and Africa, and how China's been investing in Africa, and how the U.S. is now signaling that it wants to increase its infrastructure investments and stuff. And I think Ghana gave me perspective that. And to dovetail that with the nationalism comment, it gave me perspective on China's aggressive approach in investing in Africa to buy land, to get special access.
Right.
And that did drive a lot of nationalism. Like going back to Ghana, I remember the Chinese coming in and putting up all that money to put in the road by Achimoto and all that new highway and all that kind of stuff. And the new highway by New Abrim and all that, or Abri or whatever it was called.
Yeah. Correct.
Where Rita Marley's studio, where they had Bob Marley's studio up there.
That's Aburi.
Yeah, Aburi. Yeah. And they had that new road going in, and it wasn't Ghanaians that were working on these roads; it was Chinese people.
Yeah. So I think if you go back today, you'll see the Chinese are definitely still there doing infrastructure.
Yeah. But the workers themselves,
most of it's been like handed down to
Ghanaians
now.
Yeah.
There's not as many Chinese workers because I think there was a sense that those people got trained now and they don't need as many. But there is that, there is a point that they should hire more locals. Like there's always going to be that in the world. Yeah. When you go into these countries. But yeah, so it's, it's a great place to go. I'd love to have you back anytime you like.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, look, I think you've done a fantastic job. I'm sure a lot of listeners are saying, well, I've never heard of this company. You haven't raised money since 2010. It cash flows on gold sales effectively. And then you've got on contract mining proceeds, effectively royalties. And then you've got in-house rigs where you're drilling sort of all in at $50 a meter and plucking away and finding some new things all the time and growing that resource space. You and I have talked about this, and this is one of the things I think I respect a lot about you, is that you've always had a good handle on the market and knowing when to make noise and knowing when not to make noise.
Right.
Because it's just going to fall on deaf ears. Do you find that you're still in that kind of holding pattern where you don't really want to get out and blast it from the rooftops and sort of shout it from the rooftops too much, just because, what's the point in this current market? Let's stick to our knitting, build the business, and right. Or are you finding that now you want to start getting a little bit more active on that?
Well, I think I mentioned that I think this is the worst sentiment we've seen for resource exploration companies, investor sentiment.
Probably ever.
Probably ever in my career. It's up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty bad in 2002, because I started my investment career in 1993.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad in 2002. It kind of reminds me of that now.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no capital available for these projects, outside financings. It's very hard to raise. Having said that, if you look at the gold price, I think something else is going on because it's pushing nominal highs. It's over 2,000. I think that in the next year, I think gold's going to make a push to the all-time highs, and it's going to surprise a lot of people in the breakout. And I won't go into those reasons now if you want, but I have my own theory.
Well, what is it?
Well, I think there's two. There's a de-dollarization thing going on in the East,
Okay.
number one, and that's been happening since...
Like you're talking about like the Brexit countries and like the shift.
The shift in D-dollars. And if you're a Russian or if you're from
China or
China,
whatever.
you're tired if you're a billionaire getting your money frozen by the U.S. government.
Yep.
So there's been this de-dollarization.
Sure.
You know, because I'm not saying I don't get into what the, you know, but there is that sentiment there when you meet those people in Ghana.
Completely agree.
They're coming there to buy physical gold, and they're talking about they don't want the U.S. dollar, they want gold.
Yep.
And I think, you know, so there's a de-dollarization going on. I think there's debt levels that are unimaginable, not just in the U.S., but around the world, that if you told me and people a decade ago that we'd be able to sustain these debt levels and not have huge depreciation, devaluation of currencies, they would laugh at you. So I think you're going to see currency devaluations a little heavier than in the future. So that's number two. And number three, which no one really talks about, is if you look at the huge amount of physical gold the Chinese and the Asians are buying, not just Chinese, but India,
It's insane.
Turkey, Russia, it's off the charts right now. Not just individuals, but also central banks, which is also, you know, so I think for those three reasons, that's why gold is pushing all-time highs, but yet nobody wants to fund these new resource projects, not just gold, but lithium, and everything's fallen off the cliff, copper. And so you say to people, well, we're going to decarbonize. Well, you know, these mines take 10 years to drill out and develop minimum and permit. So how are we going to decarbonize if no one's financing these things?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's not, something's not adding up. Right? So I think you're going to see gold make a huge run here. That's going to surprise a lot of people. I'm not a gold bug. I mean, I obviously will have invested interest because I have a gold asset. Like
You've always been quite pragmatic with that, even in the bull runs. Like I remember that. Yeah.
But I think it's coming.
Yeah.
I sense something different in the air right now with those three things I mentioned. And remember, when you come to Europe and you go to Europe for an investment seminar, or you come to Toronto where we are here, or you go to New York, people say gold's a useless thing and will never be, you know, it will never have any value. But if you go to the East and you go to those countries, they're buying all the physical gold, and they'd rather buy physical gold than put their money in a bank. Well, why would they rather do that? Because a lot of these countries, like look at Ghana, our average inflation rate's 30%. So you can't put a money in bank and just hold a government T-bill, let's say. It's going to depreciate 30% a year.
It'll annihilate you.
Right. So you have to buy land or a hard asset.
Yeah.
And gold's still a hard asset unless someone figures out how to manufacture it in a lab. Until that date, I think gold's still going to have a value. Yeah. So that's why I think it's a little different, but we'll see.
I wonder if Europe's going to be an inflection point there, like Western Europe, Spain, France, the psychology of those people, because it's expensive to keep your money in a European bank.
Right.
You know, same sort of thing. Like it'll just erode.
Well, we'll see.
And so they have to find something to put it into. And
I mean, I think, so I think, you know, I think there's a gold market coming, but there's so few of us left in it.
Right.
Right. There's very few companies left in it with real good projects like Xtra-Gold. You know, you can probably count on two sets of hand 20 good projects in the world, gold projects, up and coming.
Well, Jim, I think you gave the world a masterclass, even though I don't think you got the credit for it. I don't think people know Xtra-Gold as much as they should, but I think you should have you've given this industry a masterclass in how to deal with a bear market. How to stabilize your company, tighten it up, meet your objectives, move it forward, and protect both your investors and your vision. And so I commend you on that. And looking back on it, it's pretty incredible. Like I don't think there's anybody else doing it like that.
Well, it's not easy.
Well, and not everybody has a 300,000 ounce placer resource. To
right.
enter
It's
into,
and I don't think they exist now.
Yeah.
So in fairness to the other companies, they don't even exist anymore because they've all been mined out by artisanal miners.
Totally.
Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know of any. You'd probably have to go to some pretty obscure places in the world to find these things. And I think most of the artisanal miners have found them all.
Yeah.
Because remember, in most of these countries, that's their only source of income.
Yeah.
So I think they've all.
Yeah, they pick them over pretty good.
You still have a high gold price, which people are missing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
So if you're an artisanal miner and you're pulling gold out for $1,000, which I figure they are, right?
Yeah, you're making $1,000
or less. You're making $1,000 profit. It's 100% gross profit margin. It's a good business when you have no other option, right?
Yeah.
Or very few options.
Puts food on the table.
Yeah, if you're in the bush, I mean, you can't fault these people.
No, I definitely
Yeah.
don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly don't. And I think it's important to figure out how to work with that. And
Right.
Anyway, it's an interesting blend.
Anyway, well, thanks for all the, positive comments. I mean, we hope to get the word out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't usually get invited to too many projects because, like you said, not many people know the story.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you having me.
Jim, it's been awesome, and let's catch up. I'm really excited that you're here, and again, thanks again for coming and doing this, and looking forward to sometime if I can find it in the schedule to come out to Ghana and come and see the team.
When the gold market hits, you got to come out.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm really excited. It was really exciting about like Boomerang and a lot of the new zones and stuff like that too. It'd be cool to see that.
Yeah, you got to come out and see it. We're looking forward to having you.
Yeah.
Just like the old days.
Oh man. Remember when we found that rock?
Yeah, the nugget.
The nugget?
The class nugget.
Holy
yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah. Well, that's where Boomerang zone is. So Boomerang, the zone we're drilling now, Hardrock, it's
west, yeah.
It was right below that zone.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, so that was probably that nugget came right from that Boomerang zone we're drilling out now.
So one of the contract miners, just to tell people this story, one of the contract miners had found this massive clast of quartz and gold. It's like marbled. Is it still on the website?
Yep, it's on the website.
Okay.
On the front page.
On the front page, yeah. So if anybody goes to XTRAGold.com, you can look it up and you'll see this picture of this thing. And so we back calculated, did the specific gravity.
Yeah, you did all that.
I was trying to figure out. And remember, like, it was wrapped and they had signed all the pieces of tape because there was like so much, we don't want to tamper with it and this kind of stuff. So you had all of the
so you did all the weighing of it, but it was 100-ounce class.
Yeah.
And there was 30 ounces of gold
in the class.
Yeah. And we still have the piece, and hopefully it will make a museum piece if we can.
It's so crazy. 30 ounces in this.
It's a
football-sized piece of rock.
It's a big nugget. But I've heard of some big ones found, but usually they're in the belt. I've heard of big ones, but that one's up there.
Oh, that was a crazy one. Yeah. And then they wrapped it all up in cellophane and taped it and signed. Everybody had, and then you couldn't break a signature without all parties present to
it's on our website
do this
still.
work and because it's important to the Ghanaians that had found it, right?
Oh yeah, it's a big
so we had
piece.
to buy it from them.
It's a big piece. Well, one of the contract miners found it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was Kate.
Yeah, it was Kate. Yeah, exactly.
Kate and she still works with us. She's our general manager now.
Oh, is she really? Yeah. So Kate's still.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a great miner.
Yeah, for sure.
She's we have 6 big original miners, and she's the only female, and the other 5 are male, but they're all still working with us.
She's got strong leadership skills.
Oh yeah,
Kate.
she's
very.
But you have to be tough to be a woman to survive.
Especially in Ghana, it's amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she is really interesting.
Yeah.
Really
we'll have you back to see all the crew.
Cool. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on, Jim.
Thank
I hope you enjoy PDAC, and let's do it again.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Denis. Bye.